Alright, another draft science video presentation. Yeah. So start with a little Google commentary. So again, the whole thing isn't admitted what this really is. Google is the biggest marketing company in the world, and marketing means human manipulation. Really, they make more money if they can optimize how well they can manipulate people. So they collect as much data as possible and sell the consequence of their little equation, right? Their wave equation. What motivates people, and so they sell the data to companies so they can better manipulate their customers. So they can figure out what colors work and what kind of jokes work, and everybody loves kittens, so try to put a kitten in your commercial. Blah 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 blah. So they just give them a bunch of data about where your mouse went on your screen and what you clicked on. And so it's just for the purpose of manipulating human beings. And the funny part is the company that is most obsessed with manipulating human beings is the company we put in charge of indexing the internet, telling us what's on the internet, letting us know what's on the internet. And to you people, that's okay. I'm sure somebody will comment. I mean, I keep getting these moronic. I made a video last night, and the first 3 comments were stupid things like, well, what about Bitcoin? Whatever, BitChute or some other stupid dumbass website created by another couple of crackheads who are going to keep it all private. In the end, they'll sell out just as quickly as YouTube did. This has to be done in some kind of way. We have to have some part of our civilization has to be unowned. You don't get it, right? I mean, owners always, such a corrupting influence when you have 20 plows that you own, and you're going to end up starting to rent them, and you can say, oh, I can rent them for twice as much if I do this, and self-interest ruins us. We know that. So we have to create some things that just aren't for profit. That is, nobody gets anything extra. Nobody, the idea is that you just do your job, and the corporation takes care of itself, in the sense that all you do is, yes, you have a democracy to pick who runs it. They're accountable. You do the basic things. There's no magic to running things. And the real problem is there will be a ton of corruption if you put a bunch of self-interested. I mean, if you let the employees decide how much vacation time they get, yeah, they'll take the whole year off. I mean, so you have to create a little bit of check and balance. The interest of the consumers versus the interest of the employees. And that's it. No owners, no bullshit. And you people just won't vote for that. You just don't get how it doesn't hurt anything to have that option existing, the public option. And it only makes the competitors have to work harder. It's perfectly good capitalism in that sense. And you just don't get it. That even if that fails, the only way it fails is it pays people too much to do too little. But it doesn't preposterously pay some rich person just to own it. I mean, that can't be. There's nothing worse than just, giving Bill Gates billions of dollars for doing almost nothing, right? Figuring out to rent an operating system to IBM. I mean, that's his contribution. I mean, it's shit as a contribution to mankind. Renting? No, we figured that one out. It wasn't a great idea. Usury. I was just, fuck. This isn't that complicated. So anyway, they just keep doing it though. Get an ad blocker. But everything's just fine on Earth. We don't need to fix anything because we have all kinds of great options. No, we don't, you fuckheads. I mean, to make a comparison between BitChute and Google, like BitChute could have any hope of taking on Google, like BitChute is gonna, like my video would be viewed by more than 7 people. I mean, it's just retarded as an option. Ugh. And besides the fact that there's nothing in place to say I won't get screwed again. Okay, there's no I'm not going to screw you clause. It's just as bullshit as Google saying we're not don't be evil. It's the same BitChute saying the same thing. We're not evil. selfish assholes just trying to figure out a way to take advantage of people's discontent? Of course they are. Oh, anyway. They don't care about anything called free speech. They care about, hey, we might be able to make some money off this racket. This dissent thing. So anyway, alright, now for Baldy Catz. Now, I would argue that I think by now he's gotten the message, you know, that I've said 3 or 4 times now, that all he has to do is produce a video on the 2-slit experiment. So just pick one, Baldy, and say, I'll stake my reputation on that video. That's all you have to do. So, you know, I've given you a simple task. Just find a 2-slit explanation that's actually not a pile of shit. So, show me the video that on the 2-slit that's not a pile of shit. And I won't have to mention you in my videos and talk about what a creep and slime ball you are. Okay? I mean, it's not that big a task. So why doesn't he fulfill this simple little requirement? Because, yeah, the whole thing was a sham. He used the Holocaust. He used a thing that's supposed to be sacred. And he used it as a dildo. I mean, it's, you know, that's all he did. You know, it's like, you know, lighting your cigarettes with $10 bills or something. I mean, it's just retarded bullshit. So anyway, what a coward. Ugh, humans. They suck. Speaking of which, there's some douche called scimandan. Okay, I shouldn't be but you're saying, who the fuck is this guy? The only time I heard of him was that other crackpot, the religious kook who calls himself Joe Science or something. I can't remember. Science, something, with his name in it. You know, and he's just a loop-de-doo Christian nut. I mean, just terrible, bad science right there. Let's rationalize a fable and then make fable science to fit the fable. It's just so bad. So anyway, but you're saying 369,000 subscribers. Now maybe somebody else knows the story. Why has this guy got 369,000 subscribers? I mean, it's not exactly the Ken Wheeler syndrome. I mean, he's not nearly as eccentric and funny as Ken Wheeler. I mean, Ken Wheeler is funny in so many ways, in the sense that he does have a personality and all that kind of crap, and it's eccentric as hell, and, you know. So there's a bizarre factor where you say, okay, Ken Wheeler, okay, and he does a photography thing, okay. But what's this about? 369,000 subscribers for a guy that doesn't have tremendous charisma, you know, and is, you know, I mean, as much as he's, whatever this table is and this whole setup about what are you doing exactly, you know, what kind of teacher is this? What grammar school, you know? I mean, it's really not, you know, it's not high level science. It's, you know, kind of, you know, cliche. I mean, the globe, you know. We now live in a universe. I don't know, you know, if you know that, but, you know, we've now gotten Hubble telescopes and all kinds of things, and the little globe thing ain't very interesting anymore compared to the whole, you know, big picture of all the little things flying around out there. So you probably should have something else as a little piece of infrastructure. And the little space station is kind of passe and lamey, frankly. You know, it's they didn't do anything but go potty. You know, oh, we went potty in space, yay! You know, what else did they accomplish up there? Oh yeah, just about nothing. Didn't even do a 2-slit experiment, as far as I know. Anyway, and then all this, you know, this, whatever this is, buy a t-shirt for $27? Are you kidding me? I mean, it's frightening what these people do. I mean, and it gets all this whole freaking thing is initiated by a web page that goes into the Drake equation, and it doesn't overtly say, I'm just going to waste your time with a silly pile of mush. We're going to talk about something like, what's the odds of a god being coming into existence? Or, you know, I mean, just a question you can't possibly answer except to say, well, they're apparently not very good. Okay, so that's all you can do. All you can do is say, yeah, life doesn't just poof, because we can't poof it in our labs with all the king's horses and all the king's men. We can't make a Humpty Dumpty again. Ooh, that's not bad. And just the truth. I mean, so clearly this Humpty Dumpty syndrome, you know, being a living thing, blah blah blah, and they don't even have a scientific definition of the word life. Like, you know, what's the point when you can't, you know, you can't call two things that are fundamentally different the same thing? Okay, so we know the little cell things, they're doing the alive thing, and then they get, it's like humans in a city. And then when the humans get all together, a bunch of cells get together, they create the city thing, and the city is completely different. It's doing something, you know, I could take pictures of it, and there's things moving around, all kinds of stuff happening, and the city is doing a thing of its own. We're a city. Our intelligence is made out of people going in and out of Bambergers, you know what I mean? I mean, it's made out of living things doing things. Right? It's not a neuron where our brain is. Our brain is 100 billion neurons. You know, it's a community of neurons. So the thing that makes us alive, our consciousness, all those emergent consequences, are so distant from the thing we call alive. I mean, you know, replicating. You know, just have the cellular replication. I mean, we replicate on a cellular level. As you're growing as a fetus, as a, you know, embryo, it's just cell at a time. It's just, you know, build the little monster out of these pieces of living things. It makes living cells and puts them in arrangements, and those arrangements are what makes us. So it's pretty distant. The two things really aren't the same thing. A microbe and a human being are, it can be stated, are pretty much elementarily and fundamentally different. Yes, one is made out of the other, but that's the only connection. It's not a very good connection. And that was a hell of a transition in the life on Earth. Well, anyway, so the Drake equation first came up in a popular sense in terms of Carl Sagan and the Cosmos series on PBS. And that's where it really became a thing, because Carl Sagan was sort of a extraterrestrial hunter and seeker and lover and all that kind of crap, and thought there was some point in it, you know, putting little messages on our probes just so everybody know who sent it and all this kind of crap, and, you know, trying to come up with some universal languages and all that kind of mush, because there would be some point in having a conversation about almost nothing, realistically. If there was other life in the universe, they would have had to, it's the same bullshit. They had to have evolved through a process, and, you know, that evolution would make them realize that they're living for delusions in their head. They're not living for any reason in the real world. They're not accomplishing anything, okay, but chasing their own tail in incredibly eccentric ways. So if they actually sent a probe here, it should say, right, we're just chasing our own ass because we somehow think it matters, you know, that I know you exist, when it's not going to change a damn thing. Anyway, you still got all the same problems, you know, eat, sleep, fuck, poo, blah blah blah, infinitum, apparently. So anyway, this is just not, it's completely an unscientific equation. There's just no science in it anywhere, because it's asking questions we're not even close to prepared to answer, except in some vague way, like, well, it ain't easy. You know, it's pretty rare. You know, hasn't happened the second time. And I've analogized it. It's like winning a lottery. Right? If I won a lottery tomorrow, it could be a lottery that was 50-50 chances. It could be a lottery that was 1 trillion. And I can't tell the difference holding my ticket saying I won. I can't tell how hard it was. So there's just no reason it can be anywhere on a preposterous scale. The never happens except once in a gazillion years, Well, that's going to look just like the stuff that happens every week. It's not going to look fundamentally different or elementally different. Well, to some extent it has to, in the sense that complexity is always going to look different and always going to take time. So that's part of what you have to understand too, is just how much time it takes to make something as complex as us, for example. Little tiny changes over, millions and millions of years. I mean, it's just insane when you think about it. All the pile of dead fetuses, all the tragedies and horrors, all the pieces of flesh hanging out of the Tyrannosaurus's mouth, over and over and over and over again. All right, I can make so many arguments about intelligence and the fact that science doesn't even understand that we didn't become incrementally more intelligent, that our brains, because of maybe a number of factors, slow maturation, losing all of our instincts. I mean, we're the most uninstinctive organism going, right? I mean, I saw a little rabbit the other day, just a few weeks old, and he's on his own. He's, this big. He's hanging out in my garden, which isn't great, but he's so damn cute. But I mean, he's on his own. I mean, he's figuring it out, and he has enough instincts so his paws don't rot, and he doesn't fall apart. But you did that to a human, yeah, they would just be a piece of shit in a few hours. They're going to be just, dead. Because we don't have any functionality, and that's clearly part of why we are highly intelligent, is because all of our brain is focused on doing this vocabulary thing and doing symbolic representations, images, and all that kind of crap in our head, creating a model of reality inside of our brains and making it, connecting the dots, recognizing patterns, and we're doing it. And to do all that stuff, you have to give up on all the pre-programming. You have to have a new operating system, a different operating system. And that's what changed for human beings. One day they didn't have enough brain to hold a big enough language, and the next day they did. And that was the difference, and it's just not incremental intelligence. There was a big pile of it that you could have once you could do language. And that's the real barrier. Alright, you can see that with the primates and such. Blah, 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 blah. I'm very undersaturated today. Yeah, it does make me look a little gray. But that's okay. Too much color isn't good. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's just so bad. I mean, the Drake equation is a junk, garbage, stupid, idiotic, moronic thing to play with. It just doesn't mean anything, because I can defeat it on so many levels, on so many stages of evolution. I can point out that it only happened once. It only happened once. It only happened once. The development of a neural cell, a cell that could be used, electricity could be transmitted. That kind of cell only happened once. There's only one way things can think, and that's they have to have neurons. Why, if this process just happens all over the place, why wouldn't there be a variety of different mechanisms for doing intelligence? How come it all depends on one kind of cell, and no other organism ever developed any other kind of cell that does the same function? Here we are on a place, a junkyard, just covered with wheels and steering wheels and fenders and covered in car parts, the parts to make, a neuron, and it never made a subtly different one. It just made one Volkswagen, and that's it. Out of all those car parts, it made one Volkswagen, didn't touch any other way of making intelligence. I mean, it's a startling fact that just says, geez, I guess it all hinges on some impossible little set of conditions that have to take place, and those conditions just don't take place that you can watch a bunch of cells reproducing for a zillion years and they won't make a neuron. It just doesn't happen. Alright? But clearly it happened for us, and that's one of the ingredients. And again, all of the ingredients are improbable. There's a ton of improbable events, one-time events, a cell eating another cell and not digesting it and creating nuclear cells. All these events are one time. No other cell tried to do it a different way. No other cell did it a different way. You know, they speculate that there might be 6 or 7 elementally different ways that organisms developed eyesight, you know, a capacity to see light. So there's verity. You know, you can see that they did it different ways, which means it's not quite as hard. But when you have it only done once in the whole history of all life on Earth, that's indicating this don't happen. You don't just throw car parts on Mars and all of a sudden cars pop out. Alright, anyway. So this is a really irritating... There's no science in this kind of speculation. I mean, it really isn't science to do it in this context. Talking about how many planets there might be in this, or how many are Earth-like or something, that's okay. But it really can't mean anything as a conversation because there's no meaningful context to the conversation.
The Scimandan Show, the place where we set phasers to knowledge. If you didn't like...
Yeah, I didn't like it. So I got through some of his old chit chat. So this is just, we set phasers to knowledge. Whatever.
That joke, I didn't write it. Blame the editor. My name is Scimandan. Thank you very much for joining me.
Right, so all this bullshit, he already did the video. Started the video and he's going to start it again. So anyway, like I said, no offense, but science is rubbish. Okay, so here he is. This is this guy who's made his living on the internet debunking flat earthers, and frankly, they're just a dumber religion. It's totem pole religion, and of course the people with their fancy Bible and their Moses and their parting Red Seas, and they have a much more sophisticated religion. It's still shit. Okay, it's still babble, whether it's a totem pole or a totem book.
Frank Drake is a former chairman of the SETI's Institute for...
So he makes that sound like it means something. Why don't you just tell me what kind of scientist he is? Is he a biologist? Is he a... What the fuck is he? Oh, that's right. We're not going to know that.
Board of Trustees. SETI standing for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. He held numerous professors of astronomy positions throughout his career, but is probably most famous for the Drake equation. Right,
which can be defeated with the Fermi paradox, right? So they called it that, for whatever reason. But it's just the idea that, look, the universe is really, really old. If somebody was going to build something, okay, if they had intelligence and they survived having it, they would make enough, enough noise that, yeah, you'd still be hearing it. It'd be echoing in the universe. And clearly nothing's happening like Star Wars. The whole universe isn't being, flown through by a bunch of aliens. So clearly it don't happen.
First proposed by Dr. Drake in 1961, his equation calculates the number of potential civilizations that can communicate within this Milky Way. It is essentially used as a way to find the odds of finding an intelligent species out there that's able to communicate.
And it's made up of 3 or 4 numbers that are completely made up. So there's just no rational way to know a trillion from a billion from a zillion from 4. There's just no way to say, oh yeah, the right answer is 4, or the right answer is 4 billion. There's no fucking way, except understanding that, well, it's probably going to be one of those billion, trillion things. It's not going to be 4 or 40. I mean, we do have some evidence of rarity. We don't have any evidence of it happens all the time.
And it looks like this. I invite you to grab a pen and some paper and follow along.
So he stole that right from the website, so, you know, that's just tacky. So there's this dopey website, and, you know, he just took their image and, you know, blah, 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 blah. I mean, you know, tacky.
The N is the number of civilizations in our galaxy where communication may be possible.
So again, having a brain that has neurons, we already know, ooh, that don't happen. You know, so having having a brain, right? Most of the organisms, you know, a ton of the life on Earth has neurons, has brains. They're not doing anything really interesting with them. They're not communicating. They're not doing language. They're not doing any of that crap. Just one species is on any kind of level that could mean anything, you know, with a vocabulary. So again, what's the point? N equals, forget about it. I mean, I can show you how this is winning 7 lotteries in a row. Why would you even enter 7 lotteries with the prospect I'm going to win all 7? Oh, forget it. I'm not even going to try to do that.
The R is the average rate of star formation. FP is the fraction of stars with planets orbiting them, and NE is the average number of planets that can support life per star.
Right, support life as we know it. So it's all sort of irrelevant. How many planets there are, how many suns, all we know is there's matter in the universe. How much of the matter in the universe is of the right temperature to have any hope of getting complicated, right? So you can't get complicated when you're too cold, because nothing moves and nothing changes and nothing evolves. And if you're too hot, it all breaks down again. You turn everything into elemental atoms again. So too hot means elemental atoms, too cold means elemental atoms. So you need something in between too hot and too cold to be able to have something where you can have compounds. So you just say how much of the universe is compoundable. I mean, asteroids could do life, lots of things could do life if they have a stable temperature.
FL is the fraction of those planets that can go on to support life, and FI is the fraction of those planets that will then support intelligent life.
So again, this supporting intelligent life, again, is all dependent on the existence of some kind of thinking device. The thinking device has to be made out of something elemental. Clearly, the neuron is the game, and clearly, through 4 billion years of life evolving on this planet, no cell figured out how to do it except for one, the neuron. All the smart things on this planet are related to one thing, and that one thing, nobody did anything like it. Nobody did anything close to it, anything kind of like it, anything mostly like it, anything similar to it, anything anywhere near it. Nothing ever. In the 4 billion years that living things have been sitting on this planet covered in parts, in body parts, it never made another neuron.
FC is the fraction of the intelligent life planets that go on to discover communicative technology, and the big L on...
Well, obviously, if they get vocabulary, so that's the key thing. So you have to get vocabulary, that is, you have to get a language. And then you can do this stored on paper, and you can do all these kind of things, and then you can do this learning process that the human race has been doing for 10,000 years. We've been figuring out how not to drown, or how not to suffocate, or how not to freeze to death, or how not to do all these things that suck. And that's the process, and then part of that process is, you know, having the leisure time to pose and say, what does it all mean? And then you figure out, oh, it doesn't. It's a bunch of frou-frou for nothing, as Shakespeare would say. A bunch of whatever he says. Blah, blah, and blah, blah, all for nothing. Just to be, you know, dirt, and then recycled. And blah.
The end is the length of time any of those said civilizations will broadcast signals into space.
Right, so we're going to predict their lifespan, which is even stupider, right? So you would argue that if they got to some massive technology point where they become a Borg, the Borg just produces drones, the Borg produces this, the Borg produces that, it becomes such a mechanized system that you would argue if it existed, its lifespan would be permanent because it would be a Borg. I mean, it would literally be a mechanical device, and it would become less and less vulnerable to viruses and bullshit that might kill it. I mean, even its little solar system blowing up and all that crap, it would have migrated its function to other parts.
As you can see, it is quite comprehensive, but I must stress...
comprehensively mush. It's a big pile of grits or something. It's just mush. Mush. It's not good science.
We do not have exact values.
You don't even have ballpark values. You have no values. Again, it's just so... Talking about the probability of intelligence in our circumstance is kind of a ludicrous thing to do because you know it doesn't exist on this planet, okay? It really doesn't. Extract the human beings, and what's the smartest crap on Earth? Lions and sharks. I mean, you know, maybe an elephant. The whole thing is fail. Dismal failure, okay, as being intelligent. It's all just little robots with little tiny brains. I mean, it's not about the size of the brain. I mean, obviously, I mean, when you think about the size of an ant and you think about its brain, again, logic just tells you, yes, if I had 1 billion ant brains in my brain instead of the crap I have in there, I would be so much more capable of doing stuff because, yeah, they're getting so much more out of that little tiny amount of brain. It's doing pretty damn, like that stupid little rabbit. It has all kinds of functionality. It's really doing really well. And we don't do anything physically very well. We're not very functional. Our senses suck. You know, they really do. So yeah, the whole thing is just conceptual. The whole thing is working just to create this fantasy in our head to chase.
For most of those variables. However, we're going to work through this...
Yeah, however, we're going to play with this mush anyway and play little mushy, nerdy games and pretend how it's all so, well, it just happens, you know. It's inevitable because it happened once. Totally illogical. I mean, the thing that never happens except for once in the entire history of forever, there's always things, like even if I have an infinity, there's still things in the infinity that only happen one time. There's no rule that, oh, more time means it's going to happen again. No, there's no rule.
Equation today, being as strict as we possibly can with the numbers.
Oh, bullshit, you will be.
And using the most up-to-date information.
Oh, yeah, the most up-to-date, made-up crap about what the hell the universe is. Okay, got it.
That we have available. The whole time we'll be very, very conservative, and at the end we should have a rough estimation at the amount of civilizations within our galaxy that are both intelligent and can communicate.
Okay, so the paper, the website he took this mush from basically concedes, well, you can come up with any number you want, just, you know, change any one of these variables and, you know, 1 billion, 1 trillion, 3, 7, I just make up a number and you'll get a completely different answer. So yeah, the whole equation is a pile of crap.
Okay, let's start with R, the average rate of star formation.
We actually know this one quite well based on the studies we've done so far on the stars in the Milky Way. The NASA Goddard Space Center studied supernova explosions of nearby stars to get an excellent estimate of the rate of new star formation. And it turns out that it's around 5 to 15.
Oh, very exciting, right? So we know that number doesn't matter. Let's just throw that one in the toilet, because who cares? Irrelevant.
We're going to go with the lowest, 5, so we'll place a 5 in there. Next up is the fraction of planets with stars orbiting them. Well, we know that many star systems already exist, and from the manner in which stars form, it would be almost impossible for them to form without planets orbiting them. However, some star systems may only have 2 or 3 planets, not 8 like ours. So we'll be conservative here and say 0.8. Okay,
Ugh, not. Ugh. Ugh. 0. Okay, anyway. You could just say 0.8. Everybody get that, 0.8. All right, so yeah, so see, even this conversation, you know, the complexity, it's all based on these events, a bunch of compiled events. So again, you start with a cell. You start with DNA as a molecule, and then you have to have DNA with a zipper molecule to cut it in half, and then you have to have an environment where you're getting the little pieces to make the other rung of the ladder, and you have to have all this, you know, and then you create a cell that has a membrane, and then you have to create another membrane inside of it, a nucleus, and then and they're all built on these things existing. So again, planets, you're just saying, okay, suns that have crap orbiting them, you know, still dirty, because that's really the environment. It's just dirty. It's still got dirt in it. And no, let's continue.
E is the average number of planets that can support life around a star. For this, we're getting rid of anything not in the Goldilocks zone, which is the region of space where liquid water is likely to exist, and we'll bin off any of the gas giants.
So again, this notion that it's all dependent on liquid water. Well, yeah, it's probably dependent on liquid water if you want to make a reproducing thing that's made out of DNA, but maybe you can make it out of something else. There can be some other chain molecule, some other protein, some other complex molecule that you can split in half and create a copy. And that's all you're really talking about. And so you don't necessarily need liquid water. You can have liquid anything.
Can't really stand on those. Again, we will be conservative and say on average only one planet per star system is in this zone. FL is the fraction of those planets that can go on to support life. Now, this is where we really get into...
Alright, so there can only be one planet in the zone, so that number is completely silly in the sense that planets can't share a zone. So whatever the zone is, there's only going to be one planet in it. And Mars and Venus kind of point that out. There's only going to be one planet in the zone. The other planets are going to be really too hot or too cold.
The guessing part of the Drake equation, but we will definitely go with a lower estimate. For life to form, we need water, as well as an atmosphere, so we're talking about a very small chance here, perhaps 1 in 1,000,
So 1 in 1,000 is the chance of life arising on a planet. I mean, isn't that just too silly? Just because it has water, it's going to make living things. I mean, it's just too silly. I can put a glass of water out into space, and it, you know, in the vacuum, and it ain't gonna do shit.
Let's go with 0.001. Right, out of those planets that can support life, how many of them will go on to produce some form of intelligent life? Well, we know that...
So that's a big jump, right? So we're not even going to include the number of, you know, how rare, how often do planets that have water, liquid water on their surface, make a living thing. I mean, jeez. I mean, come on. We can't duplicate the process with all our technology. In 4 billion years that, you know, the chemistry's existed, complex chemistry has existed on planet Earth's surface, in all of that time, only one form of life developed, the DNA based. The DNA molecule that we are all connected to. There's not a living thing on this planet that isn't connected to one DNA molecule created in the past. There is no second version of life on Earth, a second version of the DNA molecule that's just a little bit different. No, it never happened.
That's not impossible, as we are here right now thinking about it. But again, the chances...
And you know, people make these excuses. Well, it's because all the living things would eat all the other living the other living form of life, and blah blah blah. No, they all are in an equation of survival, and it's like chicks being born in a nest. Now, yes, the first chick usually kicks, you know, the other losers out. Okay, firstborn has a higher likelihood of surviving. But it's not a guarantee. It's like 60-40 or something. Sometimes your little brother, you know, pushes you down the stairs.
Small, say 1%. So let's place 0.01 in there. Next up is the chance that intelligent life will go on to create technology.
So not 0.1, you know, no, it's probably a lot higher odds against it than that, right? So this is, look how trivial this is. So the web page at least went into a lot more detail than this, but I mean, this is so trivial and so useless as a conversation. We're just going to make up silly numbers, throw them in the equation there, and say something silly like, there's 55 other civilizations in our galaxy. It's just shit. This is not good science. This isn't science, because it really is ignoring the fact that we already know about all of these obstacles, these problems, in terms of the clear fact is, if it wasn't for that one cell that went electric, there wouldn't be any mammals. There wouldn't be any brainy things roaming the earth. It's just a fact. One cell, one event, and it never duplicated. Nothing like that event ever happened again.
That would allow them to communicate. Personally, I think if a race can reach intelligence, it's only a matter of time before they can communicate, and naturally it'll want...
Right, so that's the real, just completely idiotic factor. Why would you even put that factor in there? It's so stupid. You can't be defined as intelligent if you can't figure out how to communicate, especially you communicate with each other, you find out other people live on your planet. Obviously, you would speculate about other planets. So obviously, that's just a logical step of intelligence. So once you have intelligence, you're automatically doing communication. I mean, you're not intelligent if you're not.
To do so. Perhaps half the species out there will go on to do this. With that in mind, I think 0.5 is a fair estimate here.
Silly, right? So they gave that a 0.5, and they gave the creating intelligence like a 0.2 or something. I mean, it's just idiotic. These numbers don't have anything close to the truth. It would be every single one. It would be a 1 for how many civilizations, all of them.
Finally, we move on to the amount of time that said civilizations would broadcast any signal into space. But this is difficult, as we've only been doing it for around 100 years. If we scaled down the history of Earth, all 4.6 billion years of it, and crammed it into a 24-hour clock, then...
Yes, and if we figured out that, what are we making now? You know, drones. We're clearly becoming, the robotic age. And we only had, a little over 100 years of this industrial revolution. We're already doing the nano thing. We're already heading there. So clearly, any intelligent civilization that survives nuclear weapons and all that kind of crap is going to start making devices that make noise. It's going to make its presence permanent. Even if everybody dies, it wouldn't matter, because we'd have enduring technology that would just keep us alive in that sense, keep us making noise.
Humans only appeared at 11:58 and 43 seconds PM. In terms of our ability to communicate, we're probably talking less than the last second before midnight. Let's look at the galaxy as a whole, though, and given the age of it being 13.5 billion years, it'd be fair to say that 100,000 years...
So, they don't know that's true, so again, that's just more blah, 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 blah. They don't really have any hard evidence. That's a 50-50 guess at best, right? You could argue. I say it's less than that, but anyway, they're just 50-50ing here. That they have some notion that they know the universe actually did come from a little speck somewhere, and that all this stuff grew out of something. There's just as much evidence that it's always been there, and it just, galaxies were smaller in the past, and that maybe in the future they'll be smaller again. That they might just get big and small and big and small. 50-50, I'd argue. They have no evidence to, draw these conclusions. Very unscientific.
Is a very low estimate for this value. Yes, we've only been broadcasting ourselves for around 100 years, but we developed relatively late in the galaxy's life. Putting all of this into our calculator, we get a very conservative 2 populations. Well, we are what?
Late in the galaxy's life? You don't know how long the galaxy's going to live. So again, that's just so silly to say. It could go on for 50 billion, 100 billion, 200, 500 billion, 10 billion. How do you know how long it's going to be before the galaxy falls apart? If it's going to do such a thing. And again, you think it's contracting. You think the galaxy's absorbing matter and getting stronger. That's the part that doesn't make much sense, right? They think the universe is dying a heat death. But at the same time, they think it's getting stronger. Does that make any sense? Now, I would agree that, I would say that, yes, the galaxy is falling apart. That's why it's spiraling and getting big. It's falling apart. It's not getting tighter. It's getting bigger. That's why the stuff on the outside is moving too fast, because it's falling apart. It's not going in. It's not being held in gravity. It's losing the battle. It's falling apart.
One of them, so who knows?
It is very important to mention here that people do this...
2. So I guess that was the answer, 2. So the web page had 57, and then it had 685 million. So, you know, it's just silly numbers. And all just made up. Just mush. And if you really paid attention, you'd say, we know life is rare because we can't make it. And we see that it didn't make another version of it. And I can go through all of the stages necessary to get to complex life, and I can point out how each stage was implausible, not very likely. Some very unique event had to take place because the event didn't happen a second time.
All the time and get very different values for the end number. From 0.00001 civilizations at the lower end of the estimates.
Yeah, I would go not times, you know, to 10 to the 400th. Frankly, I think it's an impossibly bizarre chain of events. It's rolling the 5 Yahtzee dice and having them all stack up, you know, with number 5 on top of each other. It just isn't something that happens. Dumb matter doesn't do this. The elemental checkerboard really is too simple to, with any likelihood, create an image as complex as our evolution.
To over 10,000 civilizations at the higher. At the end of the day, this was just a bit of fun.
No, a bit of garbage, a bit of nonsense. You know, it just mocks the scientific process. You pretend you just put something in the form of an equation, and therefore you've given it some sort of credibility, and you've just demonstrated that any equation can be made up, because this is what physicists do. They make up an equation. They think they understand something. They think they understand what variables are relevant. Like I said, one of the variables in that equation was so fucking stupid, you'd say, why would any smart person put it in there? Intelligent life and the odds of it figuring out how to communicate. Like I said, how can you be intelligent, okay, and not be able to communicate? Retarded. It shouldn't be there. It's so fucking obviously stupid.
Logical skills to deduce the likelihood of any intelligent species in our galaxy as well as us. I, for one, think there absolutely has to be. What do you guys think?
So he says absolutely has to be. I think so. My scientific impulse is to say I don't care that I have no way of telling, and I'm going to assume that none of the events that took place in our evolution were preposterously unlikely. So it wasn't very unlikely that a DNA molecule would be formed first. Then it wasn't unlikely that somehow it ended up with a relationship with a molecule that could cut it in half, and that somehow those two ended up tied together, okay, before there was a membrane. And then somehow it had to form into a membrane, so a drop of water or something else had to make the first membrane, a dirty piece of water or something. Anyway, I mean, not insanely complicated. Just get through the abiogenesis part, just to get to where you have a capacity to do this evolution thing where you can modify the molecule and modify the organism it makes. Just huge limitations, and again, one-time event, one-time event, one-time event. 7 lightning strikes, 7 lightning strikes, 7 lightning strikes. That's what the evidence indicates. And you can just logically add that up and say it can't be understood to be something the universe does as anything like routine, because it's so rare. The events don't happen. There isn't anything smart in the ocean where life started. Okay, there's nothing very smart in there. Octopuses.
Right, that brings this episode and the first season of the Scimandan show to a close.
So this is a season, this is a show. Why is this so popular? Why? It's 369,000 subscribers. How do you get that doing this?
I hope you enjoyed it. I had loads of fun.
Oh yeah, it's an absolute pile of shit. So juvenile, so stupid. You have to be a moron, know nothing about history of science and the conversations that have taken place. I mean, the Drake equation is mockably flat earthy. It's just something people with an agenda use, not people who have any kind of scientific instincts and understand what a clinical experiment is and understand how careful you have to be about assumptions. It's completely anti-science. It's exactly what scientists don't want to do, is create fake, phony bullshit equations.
Season 2 is already in the works, so keep your eye out for that. For now, I have been scimandan. Have yourselves a fantastic day, and I'll see you all soon.
I guess that's the kind of crap that, you know, you get 369,000 subscribers because you do some fake "I love you" bullshit. I love you. Show, oh, please come tomorrow. Oh, let's have some more fun together. God damn.
Bye.
Oh, he wrote it and directed it. Amazing. Yeah. Wow. It's just, you know, he really had to work on that one, huh? I didn't say. Was there animation in there? I didn't see any of that. This is animated. Oh, it's just too depressing. This whole project of being on this planet and having to face what we're up against. It's just all too tragic, too sad, too horrible. So depressing. But, I mean, that would be a good question. What's the odds of a human being acquiring the will to endeavor to persevere? Yeah, I have the will to endeavor to persevere. So I will endeavor to persevere in spite of these odds. There is still more chance of finding intelligent life in the universe than there is a flat Earth community. More chance of intelligent life. No, I don't think so. I love Dan dresses smart. Oh, jeez. When he's teaching his subscribers new things. So he's teaching new things about bullshit, mush, crap. You shouldn't even do this to kids. This is just a mockery of science. In the more moral worlds of Eric Idle, and pray that the intelligent life somewhere up in space, because there's buggered all down here on Earth. Yes, exactly. What does intelligence do? Like all the things, it's just a scheming tool. And it's, you know, getting to that higher level of intelligence to recognize your gratification isn't what the universe is, okay? You're just a tiny little speck, and that the ballpark, the real place you're playing, is in a place where a whole bunch of valuable little feeling things are in harm's way, and, you know, you're eating your popcorn. You know, you're watching the horror. It's like watching the war, you know. like say you got a video of the war. I mean, a video feed, a live feed of the war. People would be sitting in their living room, you know, eating their popcorn. Oh, look at that guy's head got completely bloated off. Well, except for that little bit that's still squiggling. The fraction of planets with stars orbiting them. Oh, well, that was pretty stupid. He actually said that. The fraction of planets with stars orbiting them. Probably 0. Oh, that's pretty funny. So he wrote a script that he didn't read right. Okay. Two possibilities. Either they're alone in the universe or we're not. Both are equally terrifying. See, this is the real point, is that, you know, what do you think the aliens are going to, you know, like I said, they're going to have the same, they're going to be Homer Simpson. You know, they're you know, really smart things say there's just no fucking point. There's nothing to do but blow it all up, okay? So just, you can stay home and work on a universe deconstruction bomb, but there really is no hope. I mean, you know, the other aliens would have the same horrible history as us, of ancestors just grotesque slaughter of feeling sensitive and often intelligently, potentially intelligent beings. I mean, for millions of years, we were potentially intelligent. If somebody put us in a high school, we could have, you know, been one of us. You know, we could have talked shit and revered Google, and they could have done all that kind of crap. You know, use the Holocaust as an excuse to get out of a debate you were going to lose. You know, we could have done all of that crap a million years ago. We had the brain to do it. And those animals, those humans, were, you know, just slaughtered. I mean, you know, nature attritioned them in huge proportions, and their lives were miserable. I mean, the women having 8 to 10 kids, you know, all that kind of crap. I mean, horrible. Watching most of them die, I mean, just horrible. Okay, so yeah, you know, I wouldn't wish it on, you know, inert matter. I mean, I wouldn't. What is it going to gain to go through billions of years of trauma to sit around and watch the war and eat popcorn? You know, watch some stupid 911 show. Watch people wheeled into the emergency room while you eat your popcorn. Fuck. Yeah, I don't think so. I invite you to grab a pen and paper and follow along. Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, you know, he said things like that? Oh, that's just terrible. Your mom thought it was big enough. I don't know. Pluto. I don't know what that means. The numbers you choose aren't really conservative. Yeah, they weren't even close. The end result seems fairly reasonable, though. Yeah, I don't know why it would be reasonable at all, but whatever. The whole thing is just made up. Like I said, you can't tell. When you can't tell 4 from 40 trillion, you know, when you can't guess any narrower than that, there's just no point. Alright, so whatever. Look at all these morons. Moron after moron after moron. Just a sad and horrible world. But, alright, as stated, I will endeavor to persevere, and so I will be back with more critiques of silly science and the silly scientists that are floating this crappy boat. I keep selling a ride on, you know, the SS Stupid Ass. Let's make up crap. It's fun. Anyway, let's ignore the evidence. It's fun. That's all they're doing. Pushing just dogmatic, Borgy, pop culture-y mush. It's just another religion, science. Most of it. Most of the parts of it that have to do with talking about it. Obviously, there's some good science in, you know, washing machines and stuff. But otherwise, it's all crap. Alright, so, till the next time, such and so forth and whatnot. Yeah. I have to go on with my day after this. Ugh.